Hello there. Today I'm going to show you how to fiberglass an airplane, and as an example I'm going to use this airplane here, which is a Fox 35 speed model. Now the wing I salvaged from a previous model, and I had to repair some damage after the crash. But the fuselage, the elevator, the stabilizer, and the elevator are all brand new, so those need to get a fresh coat of fiberglass. Now what we're going to use is epoxy finishing resin, which is, I haven't tried others, but this one is really good. And I'm using 3/4 ounce glass cloth. This is almost like very thin hair. You have to cut it with a very sharp X-Acto blade. Get a brand new blade when you cut this stuff on a flat board. So let's see what it takes to fiberglass the airplane. Okay, now that we got all the materials together here, the one important thing you want to do is pre-cut all of your fiberglass pieces ahead of time. You don't want to mix the resin and then cut this, because as soon as you mix this, the clock has started. So you want to do equal parts between the two components of the finishing resin. And then you can take a foam brush, and I use that just to mix it. Now this wing already has one coat of fiberglass on it. There's some damage that I just want to fiberglass. So I'm going to just put a coat here and a coat here. Then I'm going to take the piece of you gotta get it so that there's no, it's gonna dry just like you see it. So if there's a great big bubble, or if there's a something poking out, it's gonna be like that, and you're gonna have to do a lot of sanding. So these little hairs will sand out rather nicely. Now the reason why this airplane was never painted was because I didn't feel like painting it. And the fiberglass is fuel proof. So for these little models, I just fiberglass them and then I'm done. Now the elevator, I have a tool that I made. And it's a simple dowel with a number 11 blade in it. So this is raw wood. And I'd put a coat of the resin down. Then I take my pre-cut piece, lay that down. I tend to work from the middle and work my way out. Okay, now the elevator, I made these tools. Now the line is the bottom of the elevator, that's the top. So I'm going to do the bottom first. And these blocks are just tape. So I can tape that down and it's not going to move on me. You know, you can pour this stuff down, you can brush it on. The bigger the piece, the harder it is to cover. Ultimately, you want to cover all of the exposed wood with some fiberglass. Now this is why you cut the piece ahead of time, so that you know it's going to fit. Because you really don't have time, especially on the big pieces, to cut the piece while the resin is, it's drying as we speak. You probably have 20-30 minutes of working time. I forget the exact amount of working time. Once I get it all stuck down, it's lifting from the tape. Then I brush outwards. I'm trying to get all the wrinkles. If you have a wrinkle, it will dry that way and you'll kind of have a mess on your hands. See, like those little wrinkles there? You want to work all of those out. Stick this thing down. Okay, see those little pockets right there? If I let it dry that way, it would stay that way unless I sanded them out. But you can see I can pull from the inside and get it smooth again. Once everything is filled, then you're basically done. You're going to let it cure. And I let it cure over at least 12 hours. So because it's late in the afternoon, I'm going to let this cure overnight. And then in the next day, I come back with an X-Acto blade, and again, nice and sharp, trim the edges, sand this, and then we're going to do the opposite side. And this is going to take several days because you got to do the top, then the bottom. So plan for several days of doing this and plan ahead on what goes first, what gets fiberglass first, and what gets fiberglass last. Talk to you later. Okay, so now we're going to do the other side of the stabilizer. And we already did the surface, sand it until it's smooth. Do it by feel. So I've got it in place. Put down your resin. So we're gonna wrap these edges as much as we can. We may have to come back and glass, put a coat of resin on the edges here. So we may have to come back on a third step to get all the edges with a coat of resin. Okay, so now we're on day 3. As you can see, this is not a fast process. The stabilizer has been fiberglass top and bottom. The edges still have a little bit of raw wood, but I'm going to take care of that with a thin strip of fiberglass around there and a second coat, which you'll see later. This is also complete. It's got both sides. Now the fuselage has had the bottom and the top, and then this area, it's got some of the, you want to do the hard to get areas before you do the sides. So what we're going to do, one of the areas that you don't want to forget about is the very front of the fuselage. So that's raw wood, and that's going to get a lot of fuel. So we're going to do this. I'm going to do a double coat in here because that's where the fuel tank's going to go. Okay. So we are on day 3 of getting this airplane fiberglassed. The stabilizer is now fiberglassed top and bottom. Now I've sanded it with 100 and 150 grit sandpaper. So it's not the final sand, but it's basically done. All the edges have been checked and glassed. So that part is complete. The elevator is also complete. It's completely fiberglassed. The fuselage, if you remember, the first thing we did is fiberglass the bottom. Bottom and the top. Then on the second day we did the hard to get areas. So you want to get the hard to get areas such as in here, and I wanted a second patch over here, which is going to get some abuse. So I want 2 layers in here. You can see the difference between the raw wood and the 1 layer of glass. Now all of this has been sanded. The edges have been checked. The vertical fin has a coat on both sides. It doesn't look like it, but it does. It's there. So what we're going to do now, we're at the point where we can glass the sides of the fuselage. So I maybe could do this both sides in one session, but it. Okay, everybody. Today we're gonna finish up the fuselage. Now, off camera, I fiberglassed the left side of the fuselage, and this is, of course, after all the hard areas, all the hard to get spots have been done. Like both sides of the vertical fin have been done, and then this pocket up in the nose, the bottom, and the top. Now the bottom is going to end up getting about 3 layers of fiberglass. So, just in the process. And so this is the final this will be the final pass. Okay, so we got our resin mixed, and we're gonna cover the entire side, even because I want a second layer of glass cloth here for durability's sake. So then you put down okay. Now, like all the other pieces, this one's been specially cut. Okay. I have an opening right here to go around the landing gear, and I have a cut right here so that it can wrap around the side of the fuselage. And so we'll just work our way. We're going to work our way from the inside out. Stuff like this, see these wrinkles? You want to get those out. And you want to make sure that all of it is it's been wetted all the way through. So you want to look for dry spots. Now I want to wrap it. I'm wrapping it around the bottom here. So the bottom of the fuselage is very well covered because it now has 3 layers of glass cloth. If you're doing a flying boat, you're going to definitely want 2 or more layers on the bottom of the hull. And that's for durability's sake. And I'm also pulling the top back over here. Okay, so we now have this now completes the fuselage except for trimming and sanding. I always do a final pass, looking for any kind of wrinkles, bubbles, dry spots. They're a lot harder to fix after the fact. Okay, so that concludes the fuselage. I'm gonna let this cure overnight. And then in the morning, trim it, sand it, and then we're going to start the assembly process. Since all of the wing, the stabilizer, the elevator, they've all been covered. So we're in good shape. Talk to you later. Bye. Okay. So now we have all of the piece parts fiberglassed. The reason why the wing looks really shiny is because it's got the finish coat of resin over the initial coat. The fuselage, it's glassed, so everything is fiberglassed, but they look dull because it's got one coat and they've been sanded. This guy looks a little shinier because it's got one extra finish coat on it. So what I've done is I've put alignment marks with masking tape so that I can, when I mount the wing, when I epoxy the wing down with dowels, I can line up these alignment marks with the parts. So the first step, like we've already covered, the first step is to fiberglass the details, top and bottom. Make sure everything is glassed. You've got the slots for the hinges. You haven't assembled it yet. Details get fiberglassed on their own. The more you can do fiberglassing details, the better off you are. It is really difficult to fiberglass an airplane that is completely assembled and then fiberglass it. So do the details first, then assemble it. So now the next step is to actually glue this thing together, do some finishing, and then get it flying.